Good morning, or whatever it is, wherever you are. So I'm trying to remember exactly where I left off here. And I think I might be adding some of my curves a bit wrong here. Although technically that's within bounds, that's also a little bit disturbing. So I've got the worst score I want, or to allow. And it's like these are within bounds, but then our speed selection is varying way above that. Now, something suggests I could still do a good score on that, but that's interesting. Also, I do want to review how I'm putting some of this stuff together because it's just like it's kind of too many factors, but I didn't exactly get the results I wanted out of a simpler model. Okay, so actually this hasn't really been updated. We implemented a B-spline. I don't remember which one I'm using. The exponential actually wasn't too bad. Yeah, got mixed mode. I was working on the UI stuff. Yeah. Lots of arrows. Oh, yeah, this specifically, because it's all just the same level. We have no UI there. Two parts of fastest. Oh, right. Because we've got our starting level and our sort of mid-level. And if we bump them, I throw the numbers up there. But I'm thinking, let's see, do I actually have... Yeah, I've got the settings for them. I just don't have any UI. And to do that as a single line rather than a bunch of little lines, as we do here, I need to be able to overlay. But right now, all the coordinate transformation stuff is in the subcomponent. So I'd need to have something that does that coordinate transformation that can be shared by them. Okay, we've got the separate settings, and then there's the problem of just, I don't like having that many settings. But it's all addressing specific displeasures I had with my earlier, simpler system. So a lot of times you'd get these, like, very, very slow songs. And it's like, I do want to have that in there sometimes, but I put it in an absolute floor. We don't want to get hammered early on, so we've got... there's no GUI for this. But it ends up being sort of the same as this line. Oh no, that's the score level. There is still the amount of wiggle around the score limit we've done. Slowest speed. Oh yeah, this has no GUI for anything. I might be able to turn back on rendering. Nope, that's right. Turn that back off. Change to this menu so we can reload. Yeah, so that's my absolute upper limit, which is... Right, I changed the curve out. Yeah, my ending is ending up a lot lower than my opening here. Which, if anything, I'd probably want to reverse that. So this might be a peculiarity of... Yeah, I mean, the fastest is sort of fine. Maybe I just have to drop that as a factor. Or actually do use some sort of different curve there. I wonder if there's some sort of, like, aliasing in the way I'm evaluating the curves that is creating a bigger down at this end? Build flow, eval flow over a number of stages. Oh, that is indeed going 1 to n. So that's what we need to do to fill the array. So n to n is 1, but 1 over n is not 0. So that actually becomes a little bit... Well, I guess what we do is we do I minus 1 over n minus 1. And there, starting fastest speed could possibly be raised a little bit. Oh. I mean, maybe 2 is reasonable. Yeah, you know, with this curve, it's essentially working out to be only the first song, or first and last, are constrained. So I don't actually know if I want this curve for that. NPS upper bound. Oh, right, because we were using this shape for everything. But... I think exponential was about the same. Yeah, that has no real chill either. I think this has to go in evens or get bad results. So that's a little bit more gentle. I might want a different B-spline for that. But it's still complexity. Don't want too many slow songs, so we've got a floor. Don't want fast songs early, so we've got that curve limiting it. I want to exclude faster songs we do well at, so we changed it to a score limit, not a score target. But now you need something else to select by. Low and mid. And we're still using those to control where we start and where we sort of end up. We've not gotten small scale wiggles at this point. So we don't have the sort of whiplash effect. This is mostly covering the same range. But because there is a little bit of large scale shape, you're gonna get some of these in between levels. So the original algorithm was just we pick by score level. And then we kept adding more and more factors to try and cut off things we didn't like about that. This is where design gets hard. It's like I have all these little requirements, and it's hard to do that without explicitly stating them all. So do I need the upper limit? One way to do that would be to make this a constant of, I guess, fastest speed. What? Must not have been the symbol. Okay, so that's just up there. Got a 2.1 into a 3.6. One point oh, 2.1, that'll be a little bit of a slow start. I might sit on that, because that's basically no limit, and that would be like two things we could get rid of. So you need some kind of upper limit so you don't do stuff that's too hard. You need, and I've been trying to do that strict upper limit so that I can still play things that I'm good at, but that are fast and challenging. I've got the lower speed limit, which I might want to throw the occasional bump into, so that we sometimes get a slow song for the sake of variation. And then we want some variation within that space. So right now, that's picking speed range within sort of the allowed range, which we'd partially visualized here. Which we really only hit this at the start and end. So I kind of wondered if you could do that as you define the lower curve and the upper curve. Actually, I think there was one version that was just upper end of score, lower end of speed. Although if those are both curves, they both sort of need two settings, one for start, one for end. And right now I do have it where our main adjustment is the upper limit right now. That's sort of defining placement of everything else. It's like a very indirect thing. Well, I mean, it's a limit, but it used to be we directly move these selection ranges. As you're moving the whole curve. So there was a bit more of a direct impact there. What? Oh, I could do an upper score limit and a lower speed limit. And then add the, well, as a curve, which would give you the bottom of this. That would essentially, that would amount to an indirect definition of wiggle. It would sort of let you control the bounds of it. And added that to both of the bounds? Then what's your default tweak? Well, that would only, the wiggle would only define bounds, so you'd essentially be picking something random in that range, but the wiggle is what's defining what's random in that range. And then there's relative and absolute. Speed is absolute, score is relative. So we were picking by score, or limiting by score, and then doing some variation of speed within that. And we might have, do we have an aliasing effect here? A little bit. Kind of getting three levels a little bit, but not too much. I don't know, this might be a bit of a sleep on it thing. I can try taking out the upper limit, see if that's just two settings we can get rid of. See if we hit anything that's just too fast early on or something. We're already hitting lower limit, so I'm assuming that that's actually doing something still. Oh. That was already constant. Right, because I did simplify that one. Yeah, 0.7. Oh. And while I'm iterating here, get rid of that default training. 0.7, 0.8. Yeah, those tend to be a little bit slow for me. And since I want to allow for high scores on hard songs, I can really only limit that by notes per second itself. Is it not 1.0? Oh. I guess I was allowing a little bit of wiggle. Okay, so other thing, I ended up evoing all of these to stages because everything was built around that back in the day. Right, the graphing functions were all set up to take evaled curves. Well, I could turn those into function calls. Although that would have to, every call site would have to do the stage to curve transformation. I kind of want to get to a point where I could just take anything out of that structure and turn on the detailed graph of it, which I haven't turned on today because I haven't needed it directly. So I was wondering if I could get the functions in here, sort of abstract definitions. And the complication with that is that then I have to do the stage to percent transformation at every step. Oh, right. These two were strictly for drawing purposes. Are the components that we're using to make a compound curve. And some of these also get drawn. So the pick functions that use these could come up with that coordinate once. Some of the drawing stuff would have to come up with it again. So this gets past an N. That's mostly used here, but also used to set our spacing. So I could pass that down there. Or I might just have to calculate the x from there. And the factor of the offset or something to that effect. Oh, other things I keep forgetting about is, Perf hat when picking. What is the thing that takes so long every time we take our parameters? Which I guess could impact on what we're doing here. Do I have any... We have time since start. It seems like it's seconds. Is that the only thing we have for profiling? Alright, so when we build flow, we perform pick. So it's probably perform pick. Yeah, there's actually quite a lot of things here. Tick start. Uh, Alright, so it was like Lua.report script error. Reset. And I guess really, we don't want the printing time in there. Alright, so this is the pick. Song list set selections, display selections. Get frame, selection snapshot. We're just going to have to include that here. And that's the curve graph. think set view should be a big thing. Ooh. Score graph is 2 seconds. I mean, pick is noticeable, but it looks like with the larger collection of songs, drawing this thing is actually very expensive. And it's an element I keep thinking I want to get rid of anyway. So stage, cell, which is part of this. Graphs, we kind of get used. Stage. That's still a thing? That's a very, very old thing. Okay, well, I might want to look at that before I jump to any conclusions, but... Set label. That seems to be the big one. Oh yeah, that's definitely our slowdown. mm, so is that perchance also what's slowing us down on a reset? As we used to see some stuff happen here. No, it's not necessarily that. Well, if that's going to be 2 seconds, it's an element I never ended up looking at much anyway. I've not been very good about removing code from here, but if it's going to take 2 seconds. I mean, that could be a utility thing for examining. So graph. Oh, table.sort. Sorted, copy data table. Right. So, oh, we have to copy it to sort it, and then all of the drawing. And we make assumptions about stage. I can just go back into history if I need it. Score graph. So now I've got a big hole in the layout. Also, what the heck was the flow graph? Might very well be totally broken. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of scaling there that's out of whack for what we're currently putting in. I think this is another thing that needs to go. Okay, so that's a different set of graphs. All right, so cell. Well, NPS graph doesn't exist. Stage is not used anywhere, and that was a timing thing. So then there's still this sort of debugging drawing stuff. All right, so pick is still noticeable, but that might be reasonable. Reset is nothing. Well, I guess if that's in seconds, that's still pretty significant. Because if we go to here, that's milliseconds. So that's still 52 milliseconds to display it. But like a quarter of a second to pick it. So I could try to break down that a little bit, but we've gotten rid of the, well, that's the big hitch when changing settings, not the thing that's preventing any of this stuff from showing up. What if I made this a little bit larger? Would we then see something? Yeah, so there's like a big bootstrap time that's using up my entire time window there. Oh, that's minimum iterations. That's minimum iteration. Oh, there was a thing where the first pass didn't draw. I think. And now that there's a lot more songs, we never get past the first pass. Yeah, so they all start out at 0 apparently, or at something, and we haven't saved. Ooh, well, okay. Cell score, prediction color. If steps less than 1. Right. Wait, where's I? Looping and then adding 1. Yes, because modulus goes to 0. Yeah, that might require some deeper understanding of why that's not going on. Oh, song list item turned on its upper limit. Okay, graph dimensions of selection. Tweaked U. Tweaked U. Could probably remove the timing. So really this is no points being graphed before after, before. Make sure I didn't break anything. Oh, I guess I might have an incentive to look into the picking algorithm because there is a hiccup there. If an element of this is super expensive, maybe that's another reason to look at removing it. Is it picked by range? Yes. That's what we're doing currently. And of course now I've removed, well, it might still be in reg then. Well, kind of. So we do this a whole bunch of times. Uh, display selection, set selection. That's the time I'm really interested in. And turn this back off for now. Okay, so that's point 2, which is still a lot better than 2 seconds. Might actually be easier to say, is it this? I don't think score 0 would cause a problem. That's a pretty big piece of it, yeah. Was I caching that somewhere else? Cell.predicted, song item list. I might only be defining that for drawn songs. Script error, yeah, okay, so nothing defined there. I'm wondering if it would make a difference to say, how do we determine if something is defined? I guess this would be, is this a not language? And does caching that help much? Oh, it actually helps quite a lot. Might be keeping around some... Oh, so the problem with that could be that we're only saying if it's undefined. Possible steps. But we want to make sure we update that if our theta changes. Which it's kind of changing all the time because we're continuing to do background training. But we're going to loop through let's see, where do we set selections equals cell, set a bunch of stuff to remember it by. Right, we go through the steps in order, and as long as we find something, we don't end up looking at all of them. So what I might need to do is it nil, null, Lua, maybe just undefined. Detecting undefined variables? Prints nil. So is nil. Actually, this might be a table function? I think this is 5.1-ish. Standard libraries, table manipulation. Table.remove cell. Oh, it didn't like that. Bad argument. Number expected got string. Oh, no, this is entry by its key. Is accepted way of removing hash map of a table. Not overriding. Includes renumbering the indexes. Okay. It's a bunch of leftover stuff, and that pretty much keeps the speed up we had before. So this is like actually interactive now. Wait. No, yeah. Lower score. Makes it harder. So the, a different way to do this would be to have predictions is a table. And then say, well, it's very similar. If not predictions J, then predictions j, and this is still possible steps and possible steps. Because that automatically clears it every time we recall this again. And where was I setting that? I was setting that specifically when we go through and draw these, we need to pass that down. That's only when we set selections, so not going to be too often. But that is selections. But this is predicting it regardless of if we... Predicting it for everything, score or not, for things that were picked. That is predicting for things that don't have scores that we might try to pick. All right, so none of that by itself indicated a particular part of the algorithm. Well, the prediction is expensive. A particular part of the algorithm is expensive. Okay, so we're at 200 again. We're not at 200. And we've got our timing code back in there. Cache predictions during pick. Now, this is only one particular version of this pick algorithm that we happen to be using right now. Well, that should still be there. It might be interesting. Well, we do 2 loops. Other than the fact that we're doing 2 loops. Da 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 da. And then before and after are pretty similar, but I didn't pay attention to the numbers. So we are looking at, no, you. And then the other loop, which, oh goodness, so this is second loop, which I could probably think more about what that means. Oh, right, we're doing our startup iteration again. Ow. It's mostly first. First. Second is much less expensive than the first. Now, this removes duplicates, so if it somehow had the exact same time, we wouldn't see it. Now that has no break. This is getting the ranges for all songs in that group. Or that meet the conditions of that group. And then this is performing the pick for each one. So we're apparently performing the pick multiple times. Maybe second zero is a common thing. I mean, I guess it could take the exact same amount of time if it's really consistent execution. Yeah, so this dynamic range thing is kind of an expensive part. Because that includes no breaks. Wait, what's local min? Oh, iPair score bound. But that is iterating over the flow, so we should, yeah, there's definitely some duplicates there. Because we should be seeing 16 of those. So that would be the advantage of doing two explicit bounding curves. You wouldn't have to calculate the notes per second range to pick within it. And we still want something to do some variation. And I think when I let it pick either randomly or just anything within the range, then you didn't really have any variation. Maybe the explicit variation is too restrictive? All right, so that would actually be a different function. I've still got all these pick bys. So pick by meter is a straight up meter equals target. Pick by rate is notes per second within some range of a target for the flow. Pick by range is the complicated thing we've been doing. Pick by score was our old algorithm. Pick bootstrap is what we start with. You kind of have to give it different numbers. Okay, did I skip it? Yeah, so these end up being scaled by the settings. So if I wanted to do... I might need to rename pick by range, because that's more of a pick by range. Well, it is a sort of range. Pick by lots of constraints. So I'd probably need some of these elements. I would kind of need to define some new curves to enforce variation in that. So that gives me a lot of things to work with. Pick by bounds. So I think I only need one loop. Timing is going to matter as much. So we want to go through the steps. Range was to expand things we didn't find something. which might not be relevant. So we want score, notes per second. So we do need to define our low and our high, just a little bit different. Oh, it's more like this, actually. All right, NPS lower bound. Right. It's less than score and that. Then not picked. Then we're not counting wiggle in at all. And we're not considering range at all here. Okay, attempt to firm and global bottom. Oh. Fill it in for now. Yeah, so that's kind of flat. Unless it comes up fast. But yeah, there's no variation now because we're not doing any wiggling. It's interesting that there is a tendency to do the warm up and cool down, although rather flatly. This probably has something to do with the score distribution of the overall population. But right now, we're basically looking at that top line and... Oh, I am not properly setting my bottom range. Yeah, slowest speed is like... Oh, I'm not setting low and high here. Oh no, that's bottom and top. Okay. Bounds. Okay, we've got an I. So that is upper bound and lower bound. I may have been, yeah, because those are things I ended up making variable in the other one. Uh-oh. Wow. It's hard to crush this. It's pretty hard to actually crush this. Oh, it wasn't able to select something. Because I'm not using range right now. Alright, how was I doing range expansion in this, for instance? Oh, that was expanding it on every loop? Well, that may have been an error. It wasn't able to find anything within there. Oh no, that was the thing that did it. It just happened to do it there. Range equals 0. Where was it using that? Well, that did give it a cutout. Or it could simply do missing. And then that was doing the low and high range for this. What do we do with you? Top plus range. That's bottom plus range and top minus range. I guess that I was indenting it to allow for the wiggle so there were actually limits. To allow for the selection range. Wait, where's... Okay, min is the score bound. So we were unable to find anything that met the conditions. So we probably have to... That means it won't actually be a useful bound. But that will at least increment it so it's not infinite loop. Need to do bootstrapping again. Oh, catnet global target. Right, I copied some stuff. Oh, which means it didn't select something. Because we have no target. Doesn't really tell me anything about what we're missing. Oh, and we reset, so we need to turn this off. Get to the real screen we actually use all the time. Oh, we're missing everything. Okay. Clearly got something backwards here. What the heck is going on here? I guess we're going to have to say, what the heck are we looking at? That we cannot find. This is going to get ugly as heck. So you just need all the things. Actually, I've got in a report script error. Print table 2. The way to do this might be print table to stir to do a literal table. That is min, score, bottom. Well, it's not going to be very compact. $8.94. What? Did I get my table syntax wrong? Do I do... No, that's equals, I think, maybe? Maybe I'm getting that confused with the Elm syntax. Well, if it printed out something for every entry, that would be quite slow. Oh, and we reset our bounds. Yeah, I was kind of afraid of that. Maybe I need to just arbitrarily cut off my possible steps. So that we get a reasonable number. Now, that's also going to make it less likely to find a solution. I pairs possible steps. In I pairs all songs. If G greater than 100, then break. I mean, for basic debugging of what the heck's going on here, we could probably even go smaller. So this is almost guaranteed not to... So it was just that random number? But we're not printing anything here. What the... We were supposed to be printing at every step. Okay, so I've obviously got my table syntax wrong. We're coming up with a null. No, that should be literal table syntax. It's supposed to be actually a different document. Table constructors. Oh, is there not a literal table? Equivalent to I equals exp. Name equals x is to name equals x. Oh, with the okay, so you could do a literal thing. So that suggests that this is perfectly fine. But they're using both commas and semicolons. Field sep is comma or semicolon. Okay. So, why are we never printing anything? I guess this doesn't work? Well, that was dummy, but... What? Did I not... I think I'm calling this function? What? It's executing that. But it's not executing that. Previous error broke something? Tween overflow. Well, that's different. Okay, we're actually executing changes in our code now. Does this work? Nope. Oh. All the individual lines. Oh, I wonder if the trailing comma is an issue. Oh, we're not actually doing reload. Wait. Halt. Okay, so scores are changing slightly. It appears that the stuff we've done here is going over a pretty small. Oh no, that's the tuning. So bottom is 10? Top is, oh, I got these backwards somewhere, huh? Oh, because these were initially inverted. Because I was trying to actually find the high and low points. So that's that range that I'm showing, which is all over the place. So I probably just don't even want to show that right now. No, apparently it's top and bottom. Nope, nope. Okay. Yeah, so right now, that can be all over the place. But we can now do, now that we found that inversion, because it was originally setting up for a search, so you just wanted extreme values. Oh, it may have, oh, it probably overtuned to a different data set. Yeah, so this gives us lows right in the middle of things. So doing it this way would involve subbing in a far more interesting curve to our lower bound. And probably wiggling it. So lower bound is constant factor of slowest speed. So I don't have settings for this right now. It would be scaled of shape from slowest speed to well, I know what these values are right now. Slowest speed is like 0.8. I don't know, 2.5. And syntax error. $1,092. Missing comma. So that's actually not doing too terrible bad at variation. Oh, and it's never that's since it's not subject to wiggle, there is no random component to that. So now the problem is I have a range that would essentially need to be properly scaled to each thing. So score bound, scaled, shape is proportional. Wait. Ah, okay. Sure. So our base shape, wiggle factor is what does the wiggle. To that. So we've scaled it to how much wiggle we want. So that is essentially this add curve. Range is a scaled wiggle factor. Base is an indented shape. Yeah, that's our base. Let's see what this looks like. Upper bound, score bound. Take the same thing and scale it differently and use it differently. So that's useless right now. That's interesting. And we are, by default, drawing our upper score bound. So we need some significant work on visualization. Because our range now is in two different coordinate systems. So in this, we could see what our sort of selection range is. So sort of this wiggly range of allowed stuff. Yeah, and this is why I was indenting it before. Now, yeah, base is scaled. Interesting. No, wait, we got scaled in there. We just want to just scale it differently. So that constrains it, so we shouldn't get below. Our low ends are not low enough, though. .3. Yeah, that might not be constrained enough. So we jump up to an 8, down to a 3, 4, 6, 6, 5, 8, 8. 6, 7, 6, 6, 8, 5. Yeah, I kind of want to render that range. But we're also getting kind of late. So upper bound, we're experimenting with constant. Lower bound, we're going to leave alone. I replaced without saving. Oh, but we're not, and we've still got some pick by range. We got some before. And some after. And that might be it. If we save it. That's hitting some pretty high peaks. So this is still... it's sort of getting okay results with very complicated means. But it's okay results to play by. Commit minus M. Oh, did I have any note updates? Right, this is a thing where I want to, when I start up, let it sit there and train until I'm ready to go. And no points being growth before pick, which I think it has to do with some first pass stuff that I'm going to have to get my head into again. And I haven't really gotten that all the way through because it seems like it could be annoying to, calling the functions might be okay. Converting them to take fractions instead of indexes is where that gets awkward. Wait. Oh, I did restart and it probably didn't save the first song, so I just missed it. Oh well, okay. Okay. That is it for programming. I'm going to be back to play this game. Maybe these settings, maybe not if something happens in getting everything set up. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hosting. I'm normally on in the mornings till around now, doing some kind of programming. And then like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, am switching over to StepMania sometime around now. It's a little weird with the clock change at the moment. Daylight crazy time is crazy. And then I'm planning to be back for Oxygen Include this afternoon, although I do have an appointment this evening and that's could get interesting. I'll just set the alarm and see how that plays out with the time. Anywho, if you're for programming, thanks for hanging out. If you want to hang out a little bit longer, I'll be back in a few minutes.